Hello, David Zritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. Who is this very well-dressed individual next to me? It's Kyle.
Good to see you.
What's going on, brother?
It's been a great day.
It has been a great day. It looks like you and I have been traveling a little bit.
A little bit.
I'm wearing the Oliver Brown safari jacket from The Man with the Golden Gun.
Love the Man with the Golden Gun.
Love The Man with the Golden Gun, and we are now in its anniversary year.
50 years.
50
Looking
years.
pretty good for 50.
Thank you. I'm actually 55, but 56 actually. What am I doing?
By the
I
time
just had
this
a
comes
birthday. Yeah. And what are you wearing?
I am wearing the matchless suede jacket from Spectre and an NPL polo from the Living Daylights, both from Morocco.
I was going to say
scenes.
Morocco scenes,
Yeah.
and this is from the Thailand scenes, right?
Right.
And you and I hear some rumor that you and I might be going to Thailand this
I've
year.
heard that rumor. I think it's a distinct possibility.
We need to
that
change it from rumor to fact.
We might spend one night in Bangkok.
Oh, I hear a song coming on.
Let's not sing.
Well, this video, though, is about this very subject. It's the reason where we're sort of in costume, if you will. We want to talk about what is the magical or secret ingredient of going to a James Bond location. And it doesn't need to be Thailand. It doesn't need to be Morocco. It could be something as simple as a corner of a street of New York.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something in your backyard where they may have filmed a James Bond movie, or there might even be a reference in the book. So Kyle, we'll start with you. You've been to so many of these James Bond locations. What is it that makes it a magical moment?
There are so many things. I think just traversing the same street, knowing that James Bond was here, or Ian Fleming was here, or I'm standing where Roger Moore once stood, it's a transformative experience. It really does add a little bit of gravity to the location.
You're right. And, I like how you say it's transformative, because you actually, and I'm going to steal this from Martijn Mulder, you're walking in the steps of 007.
Yes.
You're really kind of following that footprint. And I think there's this incredible wash that comes over you when you look at a still from the movie, or you're watching the movie itself, like we did with the Live and Let Die 50th anniversary last year in New York City, and you're seeing the same building, the same sidewalk, and you realize, to your point, you are standing where Bond was standing. You're standing where this action took place. You do feel like you're washed in being more a part of the entire zeitgeist of the movie.
And after you visited a place that appeared in a Bond movie, and then you watch that movie, it's a much more fun experience saying, like, oh, that's where I was standing. That's where that was. I remember being a part of that world for a fleeting moment.
The impact.
Yes.
And the memory becomes so much more profound. I remember when we went to Palmyra in the Bahamas, and just being there, even though it wasn't in great shape, it didn't look exactly like it did in the movie. I'm just going to use this word, and it sounds dramatic. It was almost haunting in a way.
Yes.
These locations, the caves that we went to in Jamaica, they're haunting because the echo, the sound, the smell, you realize that the senses, not just visually, but smell and sight, had to be the senses that the actors had when they were creating these moments.
Without a doubt. Palmyra was a special one because Luciana Paluzzi was there with us.
Yes.
So it really was like being in Thunderball with a character from the film in a place that looks, let's say, dilapidated, but still geographically looks exactly the same as it does in the film. It really does make watching that film a richer experience for having seen the location.
And I think, as I contemplated even this subject, the thing that about locations for me personally, and you let me know if this resonates with you, is when I think about the locations themselves, our very hobby often is about us imprinting ourselves into the world of James Bond. Whether it's clothing or when you're even reading Fleming, you are there. You're a spectator. You're part of that world. You're part of that world. It's terrible. But you understood my reference.
Two song references.
Yeah, well, one was Disney, so but you are part of that world, and that's the part of escapism. When you're in the location, there really is nothing more immersive and experiential than being in the location and feeling like Bond, whether it's you're having some food in that location. You're talking about Bond in that location, or like Luciana Paluzzi, you're talking to actually one of the Bond alumni
Correct.
in that location. So talk to me about the escapism of what a location brings.
The escapism comes from pretty much all of the other, the same way it does from all the other aspects of James Bond. The escapism comes from being in a special place. Most of the James Bond locations are very unique, very
Yes.
beautiful places, and being with your friends. Who wouldn't want to travel to the Bahamas, to Jamaica, to New York City with a friend and drink in some of that culture and drink in some of that whether it's geographic beauty like a beach or architectural beauty like New York City has. I can escape in a place like that by just drinking in the local sights and sounds.
Yeah.
And food.
Oh, and food.
Don't forget the food.
So one of the things that you've said really struck a button with me is struck a chord with me. David, it's your first time talking English. Good luck to you. Is the whole idea of when you are on that location, there are certain, I'll call it a checklist, that us Bond fans love to do. Yes, number one is to compare it to location visuals from the movies, from different aspects in the book. But I would go a distance further and say that for me, one of the things I like to do is sometimes wear clothing that connects to the location, whether it's the environment or even from the movie. The next one is to eat locally.
Yes.
Because I know probably the film alumni that were there ate similar types of culture and food, but I also want to drink the culture in. Like with Thailand, one of the reasons why my wife is going is less about this and the man with the golden gun and much more about the rich tapestry, the color of what Thailand brings to you. And so, I try to do kind of checkouts of like culture, food, location comparison, what it felt like, and sartorial. And if I do all five of those, I feel like, you know what, I've come away with a very rich sense of Bond and this location. But do you have kind of a mental checklist like this?
You know who else does those things? James Bond and Ian Fleming.
Oh.
Both of them were very much involved
point.
when Ian Fleming traveled to New York. He went to the Grand Central Oyster Bar. When Ian Fleming was in Jamaica, he ate ackee and saltfish and drank Red Stripe. That's a very Fleming-like thing to do. It's also a very James Bond thing to do. James Bond drinking bourbon and branchwater in Kentucky. Yeah. That connection with the local culture, the local flavors, flavors in both food and flavors in the more metaphorical sense, is a very James Bond approach.
It's true,
and it comes straight from Ian Fleming.
Do you have this is always the most difficult Sophie's choice? Do you have a favorite James Bond location you've been to?
That I've been to, it can't get better than GoldenEye. Being in Ian Fleming's bedroom, sitting at Ian Fleming's desk, where James Bond was created, was an impactful moment for me because I felt that sitting at that desk, that's the reason you and I became friends.
Yeah.
If it was not for that
true.
desk and the fictional character created there by Ian Fleming, significant friendships in my life wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
A lot of my personality would be totally different. I can't imagine what my life would be like had Ian Fleming not created James Bond right then and there.
You'd be acting all like Han Solo.
I guess so.
Wearing vests.
It's not so bad, actually.
No,
Han
it's
Solo's
really
a
not.
badass.
I would say mine, the one that really strikes me first when I think about this like a Rorschach test, I wanted to go to Piz Gloria just because it is so special, but it has to be, frankly, Mr. White's hideout in Austria. Because you're walking around this lake that looks like it's just from the movie, and then you're alone. Literally, Danielle and I were alone. The place was shut down, and there was Mr. White's house looking exactly like it, the same rocks, the same approach from the water, and these beautiful mountains surrounding you. Every aspect of it felt like James Bond. And then you would walk a little bit further, and there was a little cafe with like cheese salads and beer and schnapps. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is my James Bond moment. And I can't help but feel like, the whole name of my channel, The Bond Experience, is about collecting these moments. And this location in particular captured that Spectre moment perfectly.
And you got to experience what Daniel Craig probably would have been eating and going to the same places that he would have gone. and also the places that the fictitious James Bond character would have traveled in the narrative of the movie.
Absolutely.
That's pretty
All right,
cool.
here's a tough one. I always like to throw Kyle a tough question to which later he goes, really? Did you have to?
Serve it up.
Has there ever been a James Bond location that you went to that you were disappointed in? Maybe it's changed so much, maybe...
They do change a little bit over time, and it's interesting to see how they've evolved. I mean, some of these films are 50 years old, so of course things are going to change over time. New York looks very, very different than it did in 1973.
The Filet of Soul.
The Filet of Soul is now a subway station. I can't say I've ever been disappointed by a James Bond location. I will say that perhaps living in the suburbs of New York City, I'm a little bit jaded by New York.
Yeah.
I don't think that Live and Let Die takes full advantage of New York City. There's a lot more that could have been shown and that we could have seen in that movie. But I've been, it's my home. I've been there, countless times. So to walk around New York and look at street corners is fun, but it's something that I've done a lot. So it's not a new experience. Whereas going to New Orleans, going to Miami, going to Las Vegas, these are places that I'm not as familiar with. Yeah. So drinking in a new experience and a new location is a lot more fun.
I will say this. I've liked, to your point, you have a really good point. I've liked them all for their own different reasons. If there was one that fell a little bit below at the time of my expectations, and this is all about expectations, is the Fontainebleau in Miami from Goldfinger, because I had gone there ages ago and it still kind of had that feel and vibe and, old school charm, and, people were sort of dressed to the nines there, and I don't know, it just looked like an Olive Brown ad. And then I went years later, like maybe even a decade and a half later or two, and suddenly it was, I'm just going to say it was all these like hairy guys with like, lots of jewelry and stuff like that. And
little nightclubby.
Women in like little tiny string bikinis, and it's like, they were all like...
That part's okay.
Yeah, I don't mean to say like a bad thing, but I kind of looked around and I'm like, this is as far from the classiness that Fontainebleau was showing.
Right.
And all of a sudden now it was just these loud, I'm just going to say it, obnoxious parties. Now, part of that could be my age and perception. As I get older, it's like, kids.
The damn kids.
Turn down
the music.
Put the teeth in the corner of the bed, stand. But I can't help but feel like a part of me was also, and I'm just being honest here, like it was like, no, like where did that like Miami Sean Connery moment go?
Right. You want to be hearing Frank Sinatra, not Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah. And so that's what makes it more special, I believe, when we go to Phuket and we go to James Bond Island, that really, naturally speaking, that thing's not going to change that much.
No, because that's an outdoor, natural location. That's not really...
Exactly.
That's not a business. It's just it's a beautiful place of nature.
Well, I cannot wait to explore more with you and others in the Bond community, different locations. It looks like we got a lot on our table coming ahead.
I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to the next adventure.
It's going to be amazing. Kyle, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And this has been David Zritsky for the Bond Experience. We will see you on location very soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.